You may have heard the phrase, once in a blue moon. Today, we're here to talk about the full, super blue moon happening on August 30th or 31st, depending on where in the world you're tuning in from, at 7 degrees Pisces. Usually, there are only 2 lunations per month, but August 2023 is special because we have 3. This is the modern definition of a blue moon, which occurs about as often as a Venus retrograde, once every 18 months. Every year and a half or so. August 2023 brought us a new moon in the middle of the month, sandwiched between full moons on the first and last days of the month, allowing for this rare, benefic lunation to occur. On August 1st, 2023, we had the full moon, 9 degrees Aquarius. On August 16th, 2023, we had the new moon, 23 degrees Leo, and on August 30th or 31st, again, depending on where in the world you're tuning in from, at 7 degrees Pisces, are rare, lucky, and fortuitous. They empower us to break out of cycles, especially with this one aligning with Saturn, our planet of authority, father figures, primary disciplinarians, bosses, hierarchical structures, law, order, organizations, time, and karmic lessons brought to us through restrictions that ultimately teach us more accountability and responsibility. So although the super blue moon in August 2023 is lucky, the moon's close proximity to Saturn, while opposing the Sun and Mercury in Virgo, brings a more serious flavor to the mix, bringing an emotional reckoning related to our karmic lessons and harsh realities. This will shake us free of any illusion or delusion, since Pisces is a mutable water sign, representing spirituality, mystery, illusion, delusion, synchronicity, with the Sun and Mercury opposite this full super blue moon in mutable earth sign Virgo. This is activating the Virgo-Pisces axis of polarity, the axis of healing, health, and service. What was once blurry is about to become very clear. More on that in the deep dive. To warn you in advance, this is going to be a long video because I have a lot to say. This full moon is the third of 4 supermoons in a row. A supermoon is when the moon is closest to the Earth in its orbit, or in its perigee, which has a greater gravitational pull and therefore a stronger effect on the Earth's tectonic plates and the ocean's tides. This may also increase the likelihood of more seismic activity. This will be the biggest and brightest full moon of the year, and according to NASA, this one will be the biggest and brightest of its kind for the next 14 years. Pay attention. To review, a full moon occurs when the sun and moon are opposite one another in the sky, when the moon is 100% illuminated, reflecting the light of the sun and acting as a mirror, symbolizing our own coming into awareness or illumination. Since this full moon is happening during Virgo season, this means the sun is in Virgo while the moon is in Pisces. Since the moon rules our private, emotional, and comfort-seeking nature, with our natal moon placement representing our most private selves, astrologically speaking, full moons, especially super full moons, and especially in water signs, increase our sensitivity and emotionality. What was previously easy to repress, suppress, avoid, or escape will come bubbling to the surface, into the light of consciousness for healing. Full moons bring completion, closure, and release, while new moons offer an opportunity for manifestation, for planting seeds of intention. This full moon, 7 degrees Pisces, is offering an opportunity to harvest the seeds of intention that were planted under the new moon, 1 degrees Pisces, on Monday, February 20th, 2023. This completion, this release, is especially true in mutable water sign Pisces, which is the final sign of the zodiacal calendar, representing endings, the afterlife, and letting go. This blue supermoon, 7 degrees Pisces, brings with it much needed personal transformation, closure, completion, and clarity over something you've been working on since February 20th, 2023. So look back through your phone, look at your screenshots, look through your journal if you keep one, and I highly recommend that you do, to see what you were working on or manifesting and whether any of that is coming under fruition at this time. You may find an opportunity to release limiting thought patterns and habits that no longer serve you under this transit. You may also be saying goodbye to toxic influences, substances, and people. It's also a time to celebrate your growth, to appreciate with gratitude how far you've come in your personal journey. In the deep dive, I'll point out some interesting things about this full moon, tie it into the current events, explore the numbers and aspects involved, introduce how to work with the energy, and sprinkle in some personal anecdotes to help illustrate the energies along the way. Please bear with me as I struggle with a very finicky sun and poor lighting today. With any of these videos, you are invited to use the gear icon to slow me down or speed me up to whichever speed best fits you in the audience. My boyfriend prefers me on double speed, and some prefer to slow me down so that they can take notes as they follow along. I invite you also to subscribe and help us on our journey to 500 subscribers, and to like this video, which helps the algorithm push this video out so that it can reach and impact more viewers. You are also invited to comment. I love hearing about what's going on in your lives, how you think it relates to the astrological transits, and your personal natal placements. I learned a lot, aside from analyzing natal charts, but from other YouTubers, and especially from you in the comments section. And I started this YouTube channel as a way to create a safe space for astrology enthusiasts to collaborate together to discuss astrology. Please join us. This full moon, 7 degrees Pisces, is conjunct, or aligning with, Saturn retrograde, 3 degrees 33 minutes, angel number 333, Pisces, both of which, Saturn and the moon, answer to Pisces rulers, which are, in modern astrology, Neptune, and in traditional astrology, Jupiter. Neptune is in the late degrees of Pisces in its sign of rulership, and therefore very strong here, while Jupiter is in Taurus, answering to Taurus's planetary ruler, Venus, which is still retrograde through Leo, but for just a little bit longer, until September 3rd. More on Jupiter and Taurus and Neptune and Pisces when we get into the aspects. First, I'd like you to pay attention to the number 7. This full moon is happening at 7 degrees Pisces, opposite the sun, 7 degrees Virgo. It's conjunct Saturn retrograde, 3 degrees 33 minutes Pisces, 333, which, if we rewind back to my very first YouTube video for the full moon in Virgo, which was on March 7th, there's that number 7 again, the same day that Saturn left Aquarius for Pisces for its next 2.5 to 3 year journey through the sign of Pisces. And in 2023, Saturn traveled from 0 degrees to 7 degrees Pisces before starting its retrograde, June 18th, under the new moon in Gemini. 2023, in numerology, the digits 2 plus 0 plus 2 plus 3 add to 7. So it's a 7 year. 7 being associated with Venus and Libra, having to do with our one-to-one interpersonal relationships. Pisces is a mutable water sign, and full moons in water signs bring events connected to water. This can include excessive rainfall, damage to coasts, tsunamis, accidents or events on the water or sea, and with this being the peak of hurricane season, with the Gulf Coast waters far warmer than average, 86 to 90 degrees at the time of recording this video, and 2 hurricanes forming, one in the Gulf Coast and one off the coast of the eastern United States, Franklin and Idalia. Last night, when I was finishing up my writing and preparation, my research for the video, this was still a tropical storm entering, Idalia was still a tropical storm entering Category 1 status, and overnight has already become a Category 3 hurricane. Also at the time of recording this video, Franklin is off the coast of the eastern United States, but it's still close enough to create damaging riptides and swells that can lead to coastal flooding. Once Franklin moves further out to sea, this will clear the path for Idalia to move inland and hit Florida. The various spaghetti models and cone of uncertainty show Idalia hitting the Big Bend area of Florida, somewhere between Tallahassee and Tampa. Now, I always watch extreme weather because not only does it align with the astrology, I'm particularly interested in it, but I have personal interest in this area of Florida because my brother, his wife, and my furry, feline, and pooch nieces and nephews are directly in line of this storm. Additionally, my best friend recently bought a home in Clearwater, Florida. Please keep all of them in your thoughts and prayers, just as I am keeping all of you in my thoughts and prayers if you are affected by this incoming storm. This storm is moving slowly, and as it moves slowly over these excessively warm Gulf waters, it is increasing in intensity and has the potential to reach Category 5 status. And it looks like the center of the storm is headed right for Gainesville, Florida, where my brother and his wife and their cats and dogs live. To quote my favorite YouTuber, "Don't be scared, be prepared." I will link him. His name is Ryan Hall. That's what we have going on in Pisces, the moon and Saturn and Neptune, Poseidon, Lord of the Sea. Directly opposite in the sign of Virgo, mutable earth sign, we have our sun, which represents our core self, our self-concept of self, aka our ego, and Mercury, our conscious awareness or our conscious logical minds ruling over things like communication and the way that we think and the way that we learn. Virgo is highly aware of rules, order, and limitations, while Neptune and Pisces are all about fluidity and limitlessness over boundaries. Virgo incarnated with a high attention to detail and an ability to see what's wrong so that they can improve, organize, and make things more efficient. For more information about that, check out my Mercury retrograde in Virgo video, where I talk in detail about Virgo energy and specifically Mercury in its sign of rulership in Virgo. Virgo energy is incredibly service and work oriented. If you're lucky enough to know a Virgo, their primary love language is likely acts of service, whether they receive or show love in this way. And we love you for that, Virgo. They're also incredibly health conscious, which is why you'll find that a lot of people with strong Virgo energy work in the healthcare industries, especially with things involving the hands. I didn't intend to talk about my brother Ryan and my best friend so often in this video, but here I find myself referencing them again. My best friend, a Virgo rising with her moon in Aries, is a dentist who owns her own practice. My brother, an Aries sun with Jupiter in Virgo, pursued his medical degree and now runs a medical device company. I'm very proud of both of them and thankful for their dedication to health and service. Pisces, on the opposite end of the spectrum, is known for its dreamy intuition, its creativity, its deep capacity for empathy and compassion, and Virgo is known for its practical, pragmatic, grounded, logical, and analytical nature. To quote my boyfriend, whose birthday is on August 23rd, the very first day of Virgo season, 0 degrees Virgo, the purest expression of that sign's energy, he prides himself on his logic. I am helping him open up his mind to more spiritual and emotional ways of being. Similarly, this full supermoon in Pisces is urging a balance or integration between our spiritual, emotional health and our physical health and well-being, especially as it concerns the day-to-day minutia that Virgo rules. Our schedules, the work that we do, our routines, our diets, our nutrition, and the daily habits that ultimately make up who we are. You are a sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with, yes, but you're a sum of what you repeatedly do. Being said, avoid the analysis paralysis that Virgo is so known for. Don't get lost overanalyzing the pros and cons. Balance Virgo's keen eye for detail with Pisces, Neptune, and Jupiter's more expansive big picture focus, and you'll be fine. We mentioned previously that this rare lunation occurs along the Virgo-Pisces axis of polarity, the axis of health and service, with Virgo ruling our physical health and Pisces ruling our emotional and spiritual health. Stress absolutely kills. What we fail to heal emotionally manifest through physical illness in the body. As an individual who used to suffer from crippling anxiety, I can tell you firsthand that emotions and trauma can absolutely get trapped in the body. This is why performing yoga and strenuous exercise can bring people to tears, as movement allows people to tap into the trapped emotions they may not be consciously aware of. When I first started my yoga practice, okay, granted it was very strenuous. I chose Bikram hot yoga, which is very challenging. The first week of yoga, I ended up on the mat face down in tears. And I'm not afraid to admit that. While talk therapy is a tremendous outlet that I highly recommend for anyone needing someone to talk to, it may not be the best solution for everyone. Personally, it took working with a hypnotherapist and multiple past life regression sessions, along with years of shadow work. It may not take everyone years. I had some deeply repressed things going on, to unlock repressed childhood memories and heal the PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, left behind from a particularly traumatic upbringing, with what I've mentioned in previous videos, an incredibly emotionally and verbally abusive mother with malignant narcissism and what we suspect to be borderline personality disorder. We may never know for sure because my mother refuses to admit that there's a problem. She refuses to talk to a therapist, and any therapist that has challenged her, especially my previous therapists who have turned around and said, no, we think that you're the problem and suspect narcissism, well, you better believe she turns around and calls them a quack and even fails to pay them. Narcissism. Her behavior, characterized by poor impulse control, patterns of vengeance seeking, and a flair for the histrionic or dramatic, especially in her overreactions. This is a woman who has never been able to take accountability for the natural consequences of her words and her actions, of the choices that she makes. Instead of learning how to emotionally self-regulate, she made it her daughter's problem from a young age and turned to alcoholism and later opiate addiction to numb those feelings, along with patterns of workaholism that I'll get into a little bit later because that can be really common with Virgo and Capricorn energy. I'm sharing this with you because it's connected to the content in this video, and it's very much related to the work that I was put on this planet to do. I went through those experiences to learn what it means to be the generational karma breaker for one's family, to carry that burden of responsibility, but ultimately to break the chain. Because what happens is when we avoid doing the work, we shove it down, we avoid it, we dissociate, we numb it with drugs and or alcohol, we dilute our memories in the process, we don't actually solve anything. And we unfortunately, either you end up like me and you make it your life's mission to heal and do the work and not become that parent. More often than not, when people fail to do the work, they unconsciously become their abuser and continue to project that unhealed trauma and pain onto their children, their coworkers and colleagues at the workplace, the people that they date. And it's my goal to help spread awareness to this so that we can, through the light of consciousness, break the chain together. Is the shadow side of the water energies. Cancer, Scorpio, and especially Pisces, which is the master of all three, the ability to pick and choose. Watch for woe is me manipulation. My mother, a Cancer stellium, with especially her Mercury midheaven and Sun in Cancer, her Ceres, the asteroid of nurturing, and North Node in Pisces, her North Node of fate and destiny in Pisces, and Neptune, which, like we said, rules Pisces, rising in her 12th house, fused with her ascendant in tight conjunction. Her North Node in Pisces would put her South Node, it's always opposite, the South Node being the point of past life mastery, early life if that resonates more for your beliefs, which is very similar to a moon sign. It's where the ego tends to go when it's triggered because it's comfortable there. It's been there, it's done that in a previous life, and once you're able to heal, do the ego work, the shadow work to heal the ego, you're able to tap into the gifts of that South Node. This is very similar to having one's moon in Virgo, which in shadow can be incredibly perfectionistic, critical, nitpicking to the point of verbal abuse. When nothing you do seems to be good enough, or appreciated, you eventually give up. The karmic twin flame that I've mentioned in previous videos, that narcissistic person who consciously manipulated me while hiding a secret cocaine addiction and an inability to keep it in his pants, he had his moon in Virgo. Conjunct Chiron, deepest soul wound, also in Virgo. And Chiron conjunct moon is a big mother wound. Opposite, Saturn in Pisces. This young man literally told me that his brother has Tourette's, so he thought that he might also have a mild form of Tourette's, which is why he goes like that sometimes. I was so naive. I ate up every word. I've never been around people with cocaine addictions. I don't know what the side effects are. I learned. I was so naive, I would go to the local health food store and buy him holistic nasal inhalers and other holistic allergy treatments to try to help him. Because even though his allergies only emerged after he would disappear on the weekends to go to Daddy's lake house, where I later found out he was doing cocaine and partying on Daddy's boat, I was completely delusional. I completely missed the signs and instead listened to the lies that he was telling me. Ironically, my mom, remember how she has that Neptune rising in her 12th house, where it's strong, fused with her ascendant? Some very intuitive, almost psychic gifts, if you believe in that. She called this from the beginning, ironically. She was able to see that the guy was saying one thing to my face, but acting in another way, that he was not ready for me yet and wanted to be who he pretended to be, but wasn't that person yet. She said, and I quote, "You're a weekday girlfriend. He's using you and doing whatever he wants behind your back on the weekends where he thinks he can get away with it." I made the mistake of falling for his sweet lies instead of paying attention to the details, to the behaviors that obviously weren't aligned with those words. Some of those behaviors included updating his profile picture on the dating app he used to trick me into thinking he was looking for a relationship 3 months after we had been together, and a steady stream of new want-to-be Instagram models, conveniently all tall and blonde, as he would continually remind me that I was not his type, never his type, as he preferred tall blondes. He was obviously still using this dating app to collect these other women and to bring him more narcissistic supply. The song I'm hearing right now is Megan Moroney's "Sleep on My Side." The lyrics go, "And that don't make you Mr. Wrong, but you're far from Mr. Right. 'Cause I'm a glass of red fine wine, and you're a bad idea on ice. It's so good that we're so different, but when the day is done, I sleep on my side, and you sleep with everyone." I'm sharing these personal stories with you because I hope that my experiences with narcissism will help save someone else out there from experiencing similar trauma. I have known that this was my mission, to write about narcissistic family dynamics from a very young age, but I really had to go through it myself. I had to fall for someone who was just like my mother to unlock my patterns, which were overgiving. It's easy for Libras, water signs, Virgos, highly empathetic and compassionate people to inadvertently enable manipulative people due to having a high level of empathy and compassion for others. But ultimately, we can't save or fix them. We can't do the work for them. You might be able to make them more aware of their patterns, but they have to be willing to see that. If they can't look in the mirror and admit that there's a problem, there's nothing more you can do. In the case of both my mother and this narcissistic karmic twin flame, both had unhealed trauma that instead of taking the time and doing the work to heal, they turned to avoidant, dissociative, and escapist tendencies that led to lifelong patterns of addiction. An unfortunate byproduct of substance abuse is that it affects one's memory. So in the case of my mom, who's now in her 70s, the damage is done. She literally can't remember the awful things she said and done if she were able to take accountability. Nor can she recall the countless times my brothers and I have had to take time off of work, or in my case, leave careers, physically move states, to not only drag her to rehab, but to live in close proximity to her where we could keep an eye on her and keep her out of trouble, yet alone appreciate it. How can you appreciate something you can't even remember? This is why a crucial step in any 12-step program is to atone and make amends for the crimes you've inflicted in the past. It's unfortunately very common in addiction to choose addiction over the people you love most and to hurt them in the process. My karmic twin flame is still young enough to choose a different path. It's my theory that you become the shadow by choosing the shadow, and you can at any point choose light, take accountability, and make amends for the things that you've said and done in the past. He's young enough that I think that he still has the capability to do this. But unfortunately, my mom, with her health issues, her poor memory, and her age, it's looking as though the avoidance of doing the karmic work will be shifted into the next lifetime, which won't be easy for her. Back to the astrology. This opposition between the moon and Saturn in Pisces and the sun in Virgo is ultimately asking us to bring greater self-awareness to our mind-body connection, leaning into and learning to listen to our body's intuitive inner wisdom. With Saturn's close proximity to this full moon, you can expect to experience a breakthrough in the areas of life that you've been putting consistent effort into. Saturn loves consistent daily effort, responsibility, and accountability. This full moon is bringing transformation to Virgo life areas, especially around our finances, accounting, organizing, and areas where we need greater boundaries or limits, especially concerning toxic, harmful, and potentially addictive influences that help us escape reality, substances and people alike. With the sun and Mercury both in Virgo, the latter of which is strong and in rulership and the depositor for the sun, this is a great time to create more routine and structure by being more intentional with your daily habits, schedules, routines, nutrition, health, and well-being, down to the minute details of what ingredients you're putting into your body. Since the sun and moon are both in mutable signs, mutable meaning adaptable or changeable, you'll need to free yourself of the limits of any expectations. Remember, Shakespeare said, expectation is the root of all heartache, and remain open to flexibility and change, as change is the only constant. Saturn's presence adds themes of responsibility, maturity, and accountability. With Saturn in Pisces, requiring one foot in whimsical, creative, intuitive, dreamy Pisces, and the other grounded in realistic, pragmatic, practical, analytical Virgo. You'll need to find balance between facing your emotions honestly and not getting consumed by them. This is what emotional self-regulation is all about. Pisces rules the feet, pineal gland, third eye, and crown chakra, along with spirituality, personal transformation, collective consciousness, and addiction. So look out for health issues along these themes and watch out for relapses. Pay careful attention to your dreams, which may be especially vivid around this time. Virgo rules the digestive system, aka our gut or our second brain, where we possess the most receptors for things like serotonin. So watch out for digestive flare-ups. With Saturn's involvement, this is similar themes we saw under the full moon in Capricorn back in July, and it's a time to reflect on our boundaries with self and with others. Be mindful of what you're giving your time and energy to. Since Saturn rules the bones and teeth, we may also see health issues coming up along these areas, especially with Saturn and Mercury both retrograde. If you've been putting off annual visits to the doctor, getting blood work, getting that colonoscopy, when colon cancer runs in the family, seeing the dentist, now's the time before you're forced into it. I would far rather you learn to be proactive, like Virgo, versus reactive and avoidant, Pisces. Since Saturn is retrograde and rules laws and restrictions, we may see a return of karmic lessons from the past and restrictions, especially in the form of mandates in the very near future. With the moon in Pisces, a common placement for twins and twin flames alike, this may bring in a twin flame, or the return of a past karmic twin flame, especially with Saturn retrograde. With the moon and Saturn retrograde in conjunction, this is bringing in a major reality check, an opportunity to face something we've been avoiding or escaping, especially as it relates to our personal health, healing, spirituality, and personal transformation. The Moon and Saturn retrograde, especially with a Venus retrograde square to Jupiter, can be very unfortunate for trade and revenue. This can also bring disorder in government and world order on a global scale, especially as it relates to things that Saturn rules: tradition, law, order, hierarchical structures, government, agriculture, authority figures, primary disciplinarians, which could be your father, bosses, especially if your father is your boss, and doctors. But best of all, we mentioned Virgo has a tendency on the shadow side to be nitpicky, critical, perfectionistic, especially internally. And when really unhealthy, it can be projected outward due to a lack of control, a lack of feeling like they are in control. This full moon affords an opportunity to break free of those patterns of negative self-talk, to silence the voice that tells you your best isn't enough, because I'm here to tell you that it is. The length of this video, I won't dive as deeply into the aspects as I have in my previous videos. You're more than welcome to catch up in the series, beginning with the full moon in Virgo from March of 2023, where I've put out videos sequentially every 2 weeks for each corresponding full moon and new moon. Each video tells the story of the astrology of the year and fills in those holes for you, with a few special Mars in Cancer, Pluto in Aquarius, Mercury retrograde videos along the way. This full moon is just following an exact square between Venus retrograde in Leo and Jupiter in Taurus, which is a long-term transit that will exact again when Venus and Jupiter trade off. On September 3rd, Venus goes direct. The very next day, Jupiter's retrograde begins. Thankfully, they're not retrograde at the same time, but because Venus will be traveling direct again, 12 degrees Leo forward, and Jupiter begins its retrograde 15 degrees Taurus, moving much slower than Venus. This will exact again at 15 degrees. This indicates economic upheaval. We may be coming back into balance after a big drama involving where we're overly attached, especially concerning our love and finances, where and how we invest our time, money, and energy, which is what Venus rules. We're urged to become more discerning with what we dedicate our time and energy to. Venus square Jupiter can bring themes of overindulgence and overpromising and underdelivering, so we're called toward greater moderation. We can't do it all, otherwise we'll burn out. And take it from a 12th house Virgo, take it from a person whose mother has a lot of Virgo and Capricorn. I've fallen into that trap. I've picked up a side hustle just to help me forget about that karmic twin flame, working full-time career hours, driving an hour away, stopping at that side hustle on the way home, skipping things like lunch and dinner in order to do, maybe not lunch, but skipping dinner in order to do that, neglecting self-care, proper nutrition. A Virgo needs to ground down with good, healthy food. That leads to burnout. Having only 4 half days off per month is not healthy for anyone. And we do live in a society where that type of behavior is encouraged, especially while Pluto has been in Capricorn from 2008 until January 2024. Things will shift as Pluto shifts into Aquarius and power shifts out of the hands of the elite, the CEOs, big business, and back into the hands of Aquarius, the people. Under this transit, this blue moon and this Jupiter square Venus, we may be offered a grand romantic or financial gesture that will force us to make a decision or take an action regarding where we want to focus our energy moving forward. Look out for this tendency to overpromise and underdeliver, because there may be offers that are too good to be true. Pay more attention to the person's actions, not their words. That will tell you everything you need to know. We also have Mercury retrograde in Virgo in loose alignment with Jupiter in Taurus in a trine. And since Mercury rules Virgo and Jupiter rules Pisces, both of these planets and aspects to them are important under this full moon. Mercury retrograde in Virgo, be sure to check out the video I put out last week, is all about reassessing details or information we previously missed, especially involving Virgo themes. This retrograde is from August 23rd until September 15th, but the shadow period covers the area of August 3rd until the end of September. In trine to Jupiter and Taurus, brings in greater luck, expansion, wisdom, and ease in communication. We also now have Mars in Libra, a sign that's all about harmony, negotiation, compromise, and communication, bringing in even more communicative energy. Now, before diving into how to work with the energy, I'm going to read from you a couple excerpts from both Living Lunarly and the Sabian symbols per typical Virgo fashion. We love our books being ruled by Mercury. This one is about the corn moon, which is typically the full moon in September, but again, we have the blue moon, so this full moon is occurring on August 30th or 31st. A foundational staple of the Native American diet is maize, otherwise known as corn. This crop is ready for harvest each September and gave rise to the moon's name. Knowing what elements are foundational staples, not just in one's diet, but also in one's life, is the key to a thriving existence. This is a time for you to acknowledge the staples in your life and to identify the things, habits, and people you deem foundational and necessary. This is also a time to solidify all 5 necessary elements: physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social of your self-care practice. Since this full moon is happening 7 degrees, 24 minutes of Pisces, I'll read for you. We round up with the Sabian symbols. It begins at 1 degree instead of 0, so we round up to 8 degrees, unless it's happening exactly at the degree. 8 degrees Pisces. A girl blowing a bugle. Keyword, summons. Theme, a call to action. This symbol speaks to self-refinement and to the development of special expertise and skill. The image of a girl blowing a bugle emphasizes personal responsibility and pride in accomplishment. The suggestion here is that individuals find their ultimate happiness through being of genuine service to others and finding a special niche for themselves among their fellows. On a practical level, this degree can indicate a wake-up call, bragging or tooting one's own horn. Positive, at its highest, this symbol represents directness and a special gift for finding opportunities to demonstrate competency and talent. Negative, intrusiveness or loud attention-getting behavior. So watch out for those. Today, the accent is on a wake-up call. This day could present a special challenge. It's definitely a time to pay attention to what you hear. Opportunity. Your greatest advantage lies in being prepared to take action. Keep your wits about you and do what has to be done. Be responsible. Risk. Guard against dismissing some signal you get as a false alarm. Try not to have everything in your life so ordered and controlled that you can't handle the unexpected emergency or take advantage of that opportunity that you've been waiting for. Stepping stones. Summons, call, invitation, solicitation, signal, challenge, command, directive, citation, evocation, proclamation, achievement, responsibility, announcement, self-expression, alert, warning, cue, prompt. I'll also read 8 degrees Virgo, since the sun is at 7 degrees, 54 minutes. Virgo will round up to 8 degrees Virgo. If you watched my Mercury retrograde video, or if you toggle over to that and watch it, you can probably skip this part. This is also where Mercury retrograde ends. And remember, when these things come up more than once, so we have the sun, we're reading the Sabian symbol for 8 degrees, we have the Mercury retrograde stationing direct at 8 degrees Virgo. This is the location of a fixed star that I won't get into in this video, but is in that video, and I encourage you to go over there and learn about it in detail. It wants us to pay attention. Virgo 8 degrees. First dancing instruction. Keyword, assistance. The theme is in learning how to do it. This symbol speaks to self-perfection and learning through instruction. It also speaks to the importance of being able to function in a broad variety of social situations. The image of a first dancing instruction alludes to coordination, poise, gracefulness, and flexibility as the skills necessary for successfully handling any situation when the going gets rough. It also emphasizes the importance of encouragement. The way to begin is to begin. and any beginning requires a willingness to risk failure and try again if the first attempt doesn't succeed, or a refusal to give up. Positive at its highest, this symbol represents cooperation, competence, and an extraordinary talent for finessing the desired outcome in every difficult situation, overcoming adversity. On the negative, codependency and a willingness to accept a less than desired status quo rather than going it alone. Today, the accent is on self-perfection and learning through trial and error. Encouragement is the key to achievement. Opportunity. Your greatest advantage lies in finding the right teacher and putting the time and effort into reaching your goal. Be willing to accept constructive criticism. Admit your mistakes and correct them. Risk. Guard against giving up too soon or telling yourself that less than your best is okay. Be careful not to step on someone's toes by trying to lead when you should be following. Stepping stones. Self-perfection, refinement of skills, education, mentorship, learning, practice, rhythm, maneuvering, cooperation, assistance, demonstration, performance, coordination, flexibility, social grace, and poise. Since Saturn is conjunct this full supermoon, this blue moon in Pisces, and it's at 3 degrees 33 minutes of Pisces, I'm also going to read for you 4 degrees Pisces, the Sabian symbol. 4 degrees Pisces, heavy traffic on a narrow isthmus. The key word is convergence. Keyword, convergence. Theme, relieving pressure. This symbol speaks to overcrowding or congestion, and to the frustrations that arise in everyday living when time and space are at a premium and a large number of people are all trying to accomplish their individual objectives all at once. The image of heavy traffic on a narrow isthmus alludes to irritation, stress, and confusion. On a practical level, this image can describe rush hour traffic, the frenzy of holiday shopping, or any overwhelming social situation that pushes an individual to his limits. The emphasis here is on the need for cooperation and self-discipline, and the importance of balancing short-term personal goals against the greater needs of the self and the community. Positive at its highest, this symbol represents a natural talent for soothing ruffled feathers and coming up with creative ideas for resolving group conflict. Negative, self-centeredness and a complete disregard of the rights and needs of others. Today, the accent is on congestion. You may be feeling pressured or crowded by too many activities and long for more space or a little peace and quiet. I'll get into that with how to work with the energy. Opportunity. Your greatest advantage lies in getting organized. Don't get scared, get prepared. Learn to say no. Risk. Guard against failing to pay attention to the welfare of the whole, or insisting on having your desires met at the expense of others. On the other hand, don't be afraid to let others know that you have your own priorities to be met when they are intruding or interfering. Stepping stones, congestion, convergence, overpopulation, overcrowding, inundation, blocking, choking, compression, and saturation. Additional notes I have on the Sabian symbol. The symbolism, a clogged artery, the information highway, the pineal gland, and requiring greater patience or control over one's focus. Conducting communications and exchanges with greater care, especially during Mercury retrograde, especially in Virgo, and remembering that nothing can occur that we cannot ultimately influence and shape. So back to that pineal gland, which is what Pisces rules. Remember that there's no free energy. There are a lot of substances out there that end up calcifying the pineal gland. You may be, under this transit, coming in to question your relationship with one or more substance and needing a break from it. For me, the recurring one is caffeine. Caffeine boosts cortisol and testosterone, but if you're a woman with PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, as I am, my levels of testosterone are already elevated. Especially now we have Mars in Libra ruling things like the kidneys and the adrenals, which sit on top of the kidneys, which ultimately affect our hormonal regulation. this is of my utmost focus right now. There is no free energy. The way that caffeine works, you're borrowing energy from later in the day. Caffeine inhibits adenosine from attaching to adenosine receptors, which delays the inevitable tiredness until later. Similarly, when navigating this full super blue moon in Pisces, and as these intense emotions that you're normally used to repressing, suppressing, avoiding, or escaping bubble to the surface, face reality head on, and remember that tough love is still love. We mentioned earlier in the video that Pisces is a mutable water sign ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, Neptune being Poseidon, who rules the salty sea. You're encouraged to take a trip to the beach, get into the salty sea. If the ocean is not possible, see any freshwater source. That way you can incorporate both the elements of water and Virgo, earth. Ground yourself in nature. If you aren't able to do either of those, you can visit a spa, you can take a bath, you can add Epsom salt, or you can cleanse through showers. If you are Virgo or you have strong Virgo energy, or you know someone who does, you may notice that they take multiple showers per day. You're encouraged to explore a creative outlet, something that helps you tap into your intuition and get into what's called a creative flow state that makes you lose all track of time. You may be drawn to spiritual modalities, different modalities of therapy like tarot card readings. You might even try pulling your own cards. Remember that it's okay to cry, and if the energy is too intense the day of the full moon, you can capitalize on the energy 3 days before and 3 days after. So it might be advisable to pull your tarot cards not under the energies of the full moon, but around them. You're also encouraged to take extra time to yourself so that you can be alone and commune with your own feelings. With Mercury retrograde in Virgo, remember that your thoughts are seeds that very much manifest in your 3D reality. I urge you to contemplate how what we think, see, and hear influences our perception of self and the world around us, and where we might be able to shift our perspective in some way. If you have any seashells, you'll notice that shells have the same shape as the inner ear. I had the opportunity to pick up some hours at a nature camp that was aimed at helping get kids off of electronic devices and grounded down in nature, perfectly aligned with Jupiter in Taurus this year, and Mercury retrograde in Virgo. Plus, I have my moon and Mars in Gemini. I love kids. Kids and animals are a perfect way to remember to be present. An 11-year-old reminded me of this connection between the inner ear and the seashell. This 11-year-old synchronistically has his moon placement in the sign of Pisces. And I'll leave you with one final story. On the first day of camp, this 11-year-old informed me that he's prone to wander, and I may want to keep an eye on him. Oh boy, I think to myself. Here we go. We begin the first name game, which he immediately exits and decides he's going to climb a tree. I leave my co-counselor to run the name game and manage the group so that I could keep an eye on our new friend here. This young man informs me that he has social anxiety and that it's going to take a lot to get him to open up, as he's a tough nut to crack. I'll remind you, he's 11. Which is a perfect example of the type of woe is me manipulation you may see under this full moon in Pisces. Even at the young, ripe age of 11, you can see him using a medical diagnosis to manipulate his situation and circumstances to get out of having to play a name game and do whatever he wanted to do, which was climb a tree and clearly against the camp rules. He continued to inform me that I would have to earn his trust, to which I replied, "You're right. Trust should be earned and not freely given, and I don't expect to earn that within the first hour of camp. However, it's my primary responsibility to keep you safe. So please come down from the tree, and I'll give you enough space so that you can have alone time while also keeping you safe in the 3 hours that you're at nature camp." Ironically, his younger brother and I immediately hit it off on our first hike and was attached to my hip for the remaining week of camp. We later found out that the little brother's birthday is October 9th, the day after mine.